Back here on CBS Sports HQ. Man, I don't want to talk about the Gators, y'all, okay? They're hitting the road to take on number 3 LSU. The Gators coming off of a bad loss to USF in the Swamp. So Billy Napier back on the hot seat. That's the conversation in Gainesville. And this is where the Florida schedule really ramps up. And it starts with LSU and Brian Kelly's squad, who are, as mentioned, ranked number 3 in the country and has been in the conversation maybe for could this be a number 1 team, right? They finally win a season opener against Clemson, and they are 2-0. So let's welcome in my fellow Gator alum in pain, Richard Johnson. I changed your title. I hope you're okay with that. And our college football analyst, John Talty. Florida, as mentioned, coming off a bad loss to USF last weekend, the first time that USF has ever beaten UF. Richard, is there anything left in the tank? Like, are you getting vibes that Florida is going to, like, rally behind Billy Napier and really, you know, we've seen him beat LSU at home before, but do you think this squad can do it and kind of change the tune on their season moving forward?
First of all, Jacqueline, we'll get with HR to figure out about my title, what we can do there. But as far as the game is concerned, there's certainly concerns, I think, for LSU matching up against Florida, namely on the offensive interior, their offensive line. Transfer center Braylon Moore has been battling a high ankle sprain. We'll see how he can go and if he will be 100% on Saturday. The intriguing matchup there is against Florida's defensive line, mainly Caleb Banks, defensive tackle. It's unclear if he will be able to go on Saturday. There's also the fact that Brennan Betts, who got ejected last week for spitting, it's unclear what his discipline will be for that, if he will miss any of the game. That all matters because LSU struggled to run the ball against Louisiana Tech relatively in their game last week. That is the key matchup for me as far as heading into this game between Florida and LSU. You mentioned it. Florida was able to knock off LSU last year in the Swamp. This Florida coaching staff is, I would say, uniquely motivated to try to beat LSU, even for more than the hot seat stuff that's going on in Gainesville. There is sort of a disrespect aspect there when this staff was at Louisiana Lafayette, and the LSU administration did not really pay them any mind when that job opened and Brian Kelly was actually hired for it. So there's a lot going on here. Florida's got a backs against the wall notion as well, obviously because of what happened last week against USF.
Yeah, I mean, Richard nailed it. I mean, this is such a huge moment, I think, for Billy. There are reasons, I think, to be optimistic, as hard as it might be after what happened a week ago. But, you know, I saw LSU in person against Clemson. To Richard's points, you know, they're a very good team. Their defense is very improved. I do like some of the things, but they do have some deficiencies, especially on offense. You know, they have not exactly blown away teams offensively thus far. So I think there's reason to believe that Florida can keep it close. You want to hang around. We know it's going to be a, you know, rowdy environment in Baton Rouge. And so trying to hang around, can you give DJ Lagway a chance to win late in the game? So there's a lot, you know, that is going into this game. We've seen Billy find a way to battle his way off the hot seat a year ago. There are a lot of us in the media that by October were declaring him basically dead, and yet he found a way. And I think a big part of that was LSU. So there's a chance to get back on track. We've talked about it a lot the last couple of days, that as bad as things are right now and as bad as they seem, a win against LSU doesn't fix everything that happened a week ago, but certainly gets them way back on the right track, and I think would give people reason to believe, all right, maybe there's a way that he can navigate this really treacherous path, you know, yet again.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that conversation, John, because I'm getting deja vu talking about Billy Napier on the hot seat with a tough schedule ahead. It's giving 2024, right? And the Gators did manage to get 8 wins last season, but if we're looking ahead, it's LSU, it's Miami, it's Texas, A&M, Mississippi State, and then Georgia. Oh my goodness. Is 8 wins good enough if they do manage to kind of get through this with a winning record, but maybe get left out of the CFP? Is that enough to keep Billy Napier's job safe, John, or does it need to be more than that this go around?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think sometimes it's about what the wins are and against who they are and where things kind of end. And so I think if you look at where he was a year ago, and again, things are different this year. You know, a year ago, Scott Strickland was kind of in the fire with Billy Napier. There were questions about, you know, his job security, whether he was going to be able to make the hire or the fire. He now has a 5-year contract extension. He's a lot more solidified. You know, basketball team just won a national championship, as you obviously know. And so things are a lot better on the mid side. So he might have more ability to be more aggressive if he wants to make a move. But I think if you saw how they were able to win down the stretch, it felt like there was momentum last year. You saw DJ Wagway impressing people. And so right now it feels bad. But if you can beat a team like Miami, LSU, Georgia, some of those marquee games where you feel like we are at least still competing against the top of the college football ecosystem, which is where we want to be, that might make an 8-win season a little bit more palatable. But it still puts them in a tricky spot, because I think this was the year people wanted to see Florida take a leap, wanted to see them be a real contender for the college football playoff. And unfortunately, where we are right now, they're out of the hunt unless they can really make a run beating teams like LSU.
John, it's funny that you mentioned the basketball title, because that's what I keep telling myself to make myself feel better as to what I've seen on the football field so far. Brian Kelly in a very different situation, right? He finally wins the season opener. That was a big topic in the offseason. He has this team to their first 2-0 start since, LSU's national championship team back in 2019. So, Richard, does this roster feel like it can get to a natty base off of what you've seen, or do you need to see a little bit more, maybe a little bit more dominance over an SEC opponent before you're making that statement?
Well, I need to see them in this spot where, there's no surprises here, where we're a few weeks into the season. If they really can pay off the promise that they showed in week 1, I think the key thing with LSU is that defensive back room that they threw a lot of firepower at as far as the transfer portal and money is concerned. Early returns it's pretty doggone good. A.J. Halsey, DJ Pickett's a 5-star freshman in, and Mansour Delane in for Virginia Tech, just to name a few, have played really well. They are a really aggressive man coverage outfit. They are going to blitz a lot. You're going to see a lot of cover one on the back end for LSU. Florida's going to have to contend with that, by the way. Florida's receivers, that wide receiver room that's been banged up this fall camp, they got to win. They have to win one-on-one matchups, because they're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups in this game. LSU's defensive back core is really good. That, I think, is the first thing that you say, okay, well, if LSU can show that position group can play up to its potential and continue to play up to its potential, then it's good scouting, it's good development, and it's good roster building from Brian Kelly and that LSU front office. We also have to see if Garrett Nussmeier can continue to take the next step. Again, it's not really the offense that was the reason they won against Clemson. That offense actually sputtered a little bit, had a touchdown come off the board that probably shouldn't have, but it sputtered a little bit in that opening game. So how much can Garrett Nussmeier continue to take the next step as well to take LSU where it wants to go?
Yeah, let's just continue that Garrett Nussmeier conversation, because he's now a co-favorite to win the Heisman going into week 3 alongside John Napier, Carson Beck. We see all the odds here. They're at plus 1,000 to win the Heisman. John, what do you think? Can he take that next step and maybe just be like solo outright favorite to win the Heisman after week 3?
It's certainly possible. It's interesting to see him so highly, ranked in terms of the odds. When you look at his stats, they don't blow you away. I mean, he's got 469 passing yards, 2 TDs and interception. Those are not exactly mind-blowing stats, but he did, I think, look good. He did what he had to do against a Clemson team that I think right now we also have open questions about. Is Clemson actually as good as we think they were? So he's getting credit for that Clemson win. Tough environment, at Clemson. But, Clemson struggling a week ago against Troy. We'll see what they do against Georgia Tech. Can sometimes change the perception of what we think that win was, especially when it relates to Nussmeier. But, LSU, they're going to have the schedule. It starts against Florida. They'll have multiple opportunities where Nussmeier is going to be on a national stage. You look at, they'll play Alabama down the line at Alabama. There's some big games involved that if Nussmeier looks good, if he can put up, the stats that are necessary, get the wins, he absolutely, I think, has a shot to win the Heisman. But I think it's so early on in the season right now, and it just feels completely wide open. I think some people were very willing to crown Arch before the season even started. He's obviously slipped a little bit based on some of the early struggles, the loss to Ohio State. Feels like we might see a bit of a more wide open year this year. And so who knows who might come through. But Nussmeier certainly makes sense that he will have the opportunities to do enough to be in that Heisman contention down the stretch.
Yeah, a lot of Heisman moments that are left on the schedule for him and a lot of football left to play. Richard, John, we certainly appreciated previewing some of the top matchups that we have on deck in college football. And for more college football news, make sure you check out College Football Insiders. You can watch right now by scanning that QR code on your screen. Our team breaking down all the stories behind the headlines in college football.